Hello everyone, this is Laxmi Priya Behera, student teacher of B.Ed.Special Education Learning Disability Batch 2123 of Army Institute of Education, Greater Noida. The topic which I am going to discuss today is levels of assessment items. It includes multiple choice questions, open-ended and closed-ended questions, direct and indirect methods of assessment, and inferential level. We will learn about these 6 tests in detail with their examples and advantages and disadvantages one by one. First is multiple choice questions. Multiple questions tests are widely used in testing knowledge of students. One of the advantages of such type of test is that the results can be evaluated quite easily, even for a large number of students. On the other hand, a student can obtain certain number of points in the test purely by guessing the right answers, and this fact affects reliability of the test and should be considered in interpretation of test scores. In this slide, we can see the multiple choice questions. Multiple choice questions are quick and easy to score by hand or electronically. It can be written so that they test a wide range of higher order thinking skills. It can cover lots of content areas on a single exam and still be answered in a class period. It is having a high diagnostic power if distractors are constructed to address common mistakes or misconceptions. Students' responses can be scored objectively and analyzed statistically for impartial, reliable, and valid diagnostic information about the student learning. It often tests the literacy skills. If the student reads the question carefully, the answer is easy to recognize even if the student knows a little about the subject. It provides unprepared students the opportunity to guess, and with guesses that are right, they get credit for things they don't know. They expose students to misinformation that can influence subsequent thinking about the content. It takes a lot of time and skill to construct especially good questions. It is difficult and time consuming to write good items that addresses thinking skills above the factual level. The items are difficult to phrase so that all students interpret them in the same way. When students study for multiple choice tests, they focus on recognition, not recall. Recent learning theories indicate that students need to process information to really learn it. So, time spent studying for recognition is not as effective as time spent working with information. By guessing, students who do not know the answer have a 25% chance of correctly selecting the correct response in a multiple choice item with 4 options. This decreases to 20% for items with 5 options. Open-ended questions are exploratory in nature. As discussed with the "How do you get to work?" question, it allows for the respondent to provide any answer they choose without forcing them to select from concrete options. Questions that are open-ended provide rich qualitative data. In essence, they provide the researcher with an opportunity to gain insight on all the opinions on a topic they are not familiar with. However, being qualitative in nature makes these types of questions lack the statistical significance needed for conclusive research. Nevertheless, open-ended questions are incredibly useful in several different ways, like in expert interviews, since questions that are open-ended ask for the critical thinking and uncut opinion of the respondent. They are perfect for gaining information from specialists in a different field that the researcher is less qualified in. Example: If I wanted to learn the history of ancient China, something I know very little about, I could create my survey for a selected group of historians whose focus is ancient China. My survey would then be filled with broad open-ended questions that are designed to receive large amount of content and provide the freedom for the expert to demonstrate their knowledge. And in small population studies, the open-ended question can be useful for surveys that are targeting a small group of people because there is no need for complex statistical analysis, and the qualitative nature of the questions will give you more valuable input from each respondent. The rule here is the group must be small enough for the surveyor to be able to reach each unique response and reflect on the information provided. For example, a supervisor who is looking for performance feedback from his or her team of 6 employees. The supervisor would benefit more from questions that allow the respondents to freely answer the answer rather than forcing them into closed-ended questions that will limit their responses. And in preliminary research, as stated in the closed-ended questions section, the conclusive research usually requires preliminary research to be conducted in order to design the appropriate research objects, survey structure, and questions. Open-ended questions can reveal to the surveyor a variety of options and behaviors among the population that they never realized. It therefore incredibly useful to use open-ended questions to gain information for further qualitative data. And as a respondent outlet, it is usually a good idea in any survey, no matter how large, to leave an open-ended comment section in the end. This is especially in the case of a survey asking closed-ended questions on attitudes, opinions, or behaviors. Forcing respondents to answer closed-ended questions asks them to fit in your box of opinions and can leave them with extra information or concerns that they want to share with you. Providing respondents with the outlet of a comment box is showing them the respect they deserve for taking the time to fill out your survey. Like here we can see the questions which are open-ended, so the respondent or the student can express well with their thoughts. Open-ended questions permit an unlimited number of possible answers. The respondents can answer in detail and can qualify and clarify responses. It is unanticipated findings can be discovered. They permit adequate answers to complex issues. They permit creativity, self-expression, and richness of detail. They reveal a respondent's logic, thinking process, and frame of reference. There are different respondents. They give different degrees of details in answers. Responses may be irrelevant or buried in useless details. Comparisons and statistical analysis becomes difficult. Coding responses is difficult. Articulate and highly literate respondents have an advantage. Questions may be too general for respondents who lose directions. A greater amount of respondent time, thought, and effort is necessary. Respondents can be intimidated by questions. Answers take up a lot of space in the questionnaire. Closed-ended questions come in a multitude of forms, but they are defined by their need to have explicit options for a respondent to select from. There are a wide variety of closed-ended questions types for survey creators to choose from, including multiple choice, semantic differential, drop-down, checkboxes, ranking, and many more. Each question type does not allow the respondent to provide unique or unanticipated answers, but rather they have to choose from a list of pre-selected options. It's like being offered spaghetti or hamburger for dinner instead of being asked, "What would you like for dinner?" If you can answer a question with only a yes or no response, then you are answering a closed-ended type of question. It includes true or false or fill in the blanks with the hints. In this slide, we are able to see these fill in the blanks questions with the hints given above, and the true and false questions are also there. Closed-ended questions are easier and quicker for respondents to answer. The answers of different respondents are easier to compare, answers are easier to code and statistically easier to analyze also. The response choices can clarify question meaning for respondents. Respondents are more likely to answer about sensitive topics. There are fewer irrelevant or confused answers to questions. Less articulate or less literate respondents are not at any disadvantage, and the replication is also easier here. And these close-ended questions, they can suggest ideas that our respondents would not otherwise have. Responded with no opinion or no knowledge can answer anyway. Respondents can be frustrated because their desired answer is not a choice. It is confusing if many response choices are offered. Misinterpretation of a question can go unnoticed. Distinctions between respondent answers may be blurred. Clerical mistakes or marking the wrong response is possible. They force respondents to give simplistic responses to complex issues. They force people to make choices they would not make in the real world. Direct method of assessment is based on a sample of actual student work, including report, exams, demonstration, performances, and completed works. Requires student to produce work so that reviewers can assess how well students meet expectations. For example, pre and post test, multiple choice test questions, essay test questions, case studies, presentations, etc. This slide shows different direct methods of assessments. Direct method of assessment is inexpensive, comprehensive, and the pre-post testing allows for value-added assessment. Students take embedded course work seriously, therefore work is a good chance of reflecting actual abilities. And it it is like developing appropriate test questions that reflect learning outcomes, and complex level of learning takes the time and skill. For pre and post testing, it is difficult to design the tests that are comparable at different times. In general, biases of data over years, instructors, or differences can influence the result. Indirect method of assessment is based upon a report of perceived student learning. Indirect method measures of assessment provides opportunities for students to reflect on their learning and inform the reviewers this perception of their learning experience. For example, surveys, focus group, out interviews, job placements, etc. We can see here some of the indirect method of assessment tools. Indirect method of assessment helps to access certain implicit qualities of the student learning, such as values, feelings, perceptions, and attitudes from a variety of perspectives. It conducts comparisons of different groups of students on some outcomes or question. Important to hear from the student's viewpoint. and students' perception of their ability may not relate to their actual ability. Those who are alumni are more satisfied than graduating seniors, who tend to be more satisfied than sophomores. Not much useful in identifying scientific knowledge and skill deficiencies. Inferential level, it is the application level of acquired knowledge. Inferential comprehension deals with what the author means by what it is said. The reader must simply read between the lines and make inferences about things not directly stated. Again, these inferences are made in the main ideas, supporting details, sequence, and cause and effect relationships. Inferential comprehension could also involve interpreting figurative language, drawing conclusions, predicting outcomes, determining the mood, and judging author's point of view. Are some of the written work which is stating the inferential level. Inferential level have some advantages and some disadvantages. Advantages like it is having multiple ways to apply knowledge. Scope of self-expression is more. It requires critical thinking. Some disadvantages only consist of the subjectivity of the topic. Referencing is an important part of any academic work. One should reference whenever one uses someone else's idea. These are the links of the websites which helped me in compiling the information. Concluding this topic, I would like to share a quote which says, "Never measure the progress of a child using another child's ruler." Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.